All right, apparently the next question comes from a guy named Tiemans. Tiemans. Odd name. I think it's probably fake. I don't think it's real. I think it must be some kind of fake name. Zechariah Tiemans. Yeah, that's definitely fake for sure. It's got looks like an early Dirty Harry icon. I like him already. For those of you who may not know, here in version 2.0, the first of the new Stratosphere line, streaming to you from the Stratosphere stage here in beautiful Sherman Oaks, California, in HD. The Tiemans are, in fact, an artificial intelligence algorithm that is related to all kinds of forms of cheating and debauchery and all kinds of illegal, if not illegal, immoral activities gotten together in the name of the various Tiemans brothers, who somehow, through methods certainly unsavory and probably illegal, have managed to run up the score on their questions, which are universally superb. So, Zechariah Tiemans has a thought experiment. Take a deep breath, because it's a long one. Here we go. I haven't read it yet, by the way. Take 100 conservatives and 100 liberals and place them on opposite sides of an Earth-like planet, all with the same animals, plants, etc. They're given no tools of any kind of technology other than the clothes they are wearing. Their task is to survive and build a civilization for themselves and future generations. Each group has as much knowledge of history and present-day society and technology as you would expect from conservatives and liberals in general. Questions. What does each civilization look like, and how fast does each civilization progress intellectually and technologically, given that there is already a foundation based on the knowledge of what everyday life was like in present-day first world country? Hard mode. Answer the question without referencing a certain pair of letters. Like RK? You lose the hard mode. I can probably do it without RK. It's like trying to explain physics without relativity, but you can probably do it. All right, so basically when you take the question, strip away all the rhetorical Tiemanisms, what you're really left with is what is the difference between liberals and conservatives, and if you were able to completely segregate them, how would that manifest itself? Let me start by saying something that's funny, because I heard a story about this not too long ago. I think it was one of the, in response to one of these culture of rape nonsense things that the left is always foisting on us, and feminists foisting on us. And some guy was saying that he wrote a fairly impressive article on this, and he was saying he'd seen 2 of these kind of survivor type shows where they took men and women and put them on separate islands. Now, I'm not trying to say that men are conservatives and women are liberal at all. I'm not saying that at all. The reason I'm bringing this up as an example is because it did reinforce to me this belief that different people from different backgrounds with different philosophies would behave differently. What this guy said he saw in 2 different episodes of 2 different shows, so this happened twice. The short form was that the men on the island basically got together and said, all right, what needs to be done? All right, let's break it up into jobs. Joe, you take this, we'll start building houses. I'll start building, go do fishing, you do this, we're running here, get the things, we need this, going to this, and let's get to work. And the sooner we can get to work, the better we can be comfortable. And he said the women basically argued a little bit, and then half of them went off to sunbathe, and the other ones just sat around and complained about why Shirley wasn't doing anything. And apparently, according to this guy, I have to say, because I did not see these episodes myself, but he said in both cases, the men pretty much immediately got down to cooperation. A patriarchy kind of a structure was established, but no one was pushing anyone around because they didn't have any legal authority. It's mostly cooperation and argument, reason. Like, you're taller than me, go get the high-hanging fruit. And they said in both cases, after a very short period of time, a day or 2, they had to send men over to the women's island, and the guy said you would think that this would make the men very happy, the men that went to the women's island. Some women went to the men's island. The women that went to the men's island were very happy. They were well taken care of and treated like princesses. The men that went to the women's island, on the other hand, he said were just tortured because they felt like they had to do all the work, and the more work they did, the more people sat around and sunbathed. So if you think I'm saying women are lazy, I'm not. Women work hard, and in cases of single moms, they work harder than anybody in society. Single dads, too, for that matter. I caught myself on that once. But what it does say, I think, is that there are fundamental differences in people and fundamental differences in the way people are wired. And I think that's a good launching point to answer your question, because I suspect that what you would see from the conservatives is a much more voluntary association of people doing what they feel they're best suited to do based on their skill set, and strangely enough, a lot less resentment. I can adjust one thing here that I have seen with my own eyes. When I was working, I was doing some ads for. I had a production company in Gainesville around 94, 95 when I went back to the University of Florida, and there's a state theater in Florida called the Hippodrome, and it's a great theater, and great actors in it, and they do great programs. But the Hippodrome management was a bunch, not only of women, mostly women, some men, and all of them, not just liberals, but I mean big-time progressives. And since they were big-time progressives, needless to say, they prioritized the fact that everyone should have a say, and everyone should have input, and nobody's feelings should get hurt, and whatever we do, we should not, under any circumstances, have anything that looked like a patriarchy or any kind of authoritarian hierarchical structure, because that would be depriving people of their right to have input. And it's all one giant commune. And it's a commune because the people who were setting it up were communists. And I watched it with my own eyes. I sat at a meeting of the Hippodrome board, and you may think I'm exaggerating here, but I'm telling you the truth. There was a 90-minute discussion that terminated with two people storming out of the room in tears, screaming at the top of their lungs. And this 90-minute discussion was whether or not the flyers that they were going to send out notifying people of some new membership drive were going to be printed on either goldenrod or canary. The color of the paper, was it going to be canary or goldenrod, a dark yellow or a light yellow? 90 minutes and screaming fits later, where entire friendships were destroyed in the course of a few minutes of white-hot anger. Two people on the board stormed out of the room, one of them crying, the other one about to cry. People inside spent the next 30 minutes talking about what a bunch of losers and how jealous they were. And this is an absolute fact. Because nobody was in charge, they spent 90 minutes plus another 30 arguing over whether or not it was going to be on light yellow or dark yellow. And the point is, there's an even better point to this. And the point is that in an effort to make sure that nobody's feelings were hurt, everybody's feelings were hurt. Because it's a complete and total waste of time to make it to put this kind of energy into such trivial stuff. They probably would have had a 2-day fight over what kind of font to use. And when you say to everybody has their input, and no one's got authority over anyone else, and we're all in this equally together, then what you're basically saying to people is you're saying, well, I've got to get my little paws on this, because if I don't have any identity. I don't want to just nod and go along with that patriarchy or the authority. Therefore, I'm going to make a 90-minute speech on the benefits of goldenrod as opposed to canary. And I see it all the time. And you see it all the time. And Dave Wellman here says it sounds like the Occupy Wall Street. It's exactly like Occupy Wall Street. Do you guys remember when Occupy Wall Street was moving in and they were forming their own government? And the main thing about the government was that no one should have authority over anyone else. It should all be equal. And as it turns out, they all voting on everything, and then you start setting up little subcommittees and smaller subcommittees, and everybody's arguing, and some people are putting in money and some aren't, and the people that put in money say they should have more say than those that don't. The ones that don't say, no, you shouldn't. And all of it goes on, and nothing gets done. Nothing gets done. And I'd so much rather voluntarily associate myself with people in authority, and if I don't like the way they're handling it, then I'll leave. But see, if I'm in a board meeting, and I'm working for a guy, and he's paying me, and he says he wants the company letterheads to go out in goldenrod, and I think canary is better, I'm not going to say jack about it. You know why? Because I work for him, and it's not that important. We'll argue about the important stuff, maybe, and I'll put my input in, and if he doesn't, respond, then I can either leave or stay and continue to get the paycheck. What do you say to this? So the reason that Exxon has billions and billions and billions of dollars is because Exxon doesn't have 90-minute meetings where board members leave in tears about whether or not the company program should be printed in goldenrod or canary. They argue about the important things. So back to the Tiemann's question. The Tiemann's question tells me that I think what you would find is that conservatives are I can't do it without saying R and K. Conservatives are a pack, and liberals are a herd. And this is not invention on my part, and it's not slander. If you listen to the liberals talk about Barack Obama, and now talking about, oh my God, what's her name? Pocahontas. That's right, that's my tongue. I can see her miserable little face. It'll come to me. Somebody will point it out in the comments in a second here. They're talking about, kind of a disappointment with Obama. The real Messiah is it's going to be this woman. She's the real progressive. We thought Obama was it, but he's not progressive enough. He keeps caving into conservative, viewpoints and stuff. And you heard this the whole time when Obama was, nominated, and it's like he's the one. Here he is. He's the one who's going to bring hope and change. He's going to save us. He's going to save us. They love the idea of Messiah. You listen to them talk about Jack Kennedy. It's like, oh, we wouldn't have been in Vietnam, and there would be money for everybody, and we'd have had free health care. We would have been out of Vietnam, and wouldn't have any troubles at all if only they hadn't killed Bobby the Messiah. He was the one. He was the one. Well, the problem is when you wait for the one, it's passive, and you sit and wait, and the one will come or convince you that he's the one, and he'll do it to gain power. And maybe rarely he'll be doing it because he thinks he's doing it for the best, but mostly he's doing it for the power. Elizabeth Warren, thank you, Matt. So we don't believe in the one. I don't. People say, when's the next Reagan coming? It'd be nice to have a spokesman for conservative values, but we don't need a Reagan. We need 150 million people who can tell the difference between right and wrong and know that if you spend more than you take in, you're going to go broke. That's all we need. We need 200 million people who can figure those things out. That's all it takes. We don't need a Messiah. We don't need somebody come in and change our lives and improve our lives and tell us how to think and what to do and what to drive. We know what to do better than they do. That's the fundamental difference between conservatives and liberals. Not only do we not want to tell other people what to do, we don't like being told what to do. And I don't think an expert in Washington knows more about me than I do. And as I say on virtually every speech I ever give, they certainly don't know more about how to run the gas station on the corner than the guy that actually runs the gas station on the corner. A Harvard MBA does not give you omniscience. On the contrary, it teaches you how to think in intellectual ways that have no connection to reality, and they always fail. So I think of all the things I would see, the difference between these two camps or these two planets, Zechariah, is practicality versus, intellectualism. And I'm a smart enough guy, but I think intellectualism, I'm smart enough to know how stupid intellectualism is. I think my favorite statement about intellectuals is, they see something in operation, they go, well, yes, it works in practice, but will it work in theory? That's all you need to know about these guys, It's all a train set for them. It's just a form of masturbation, honestly. This idea that we're going to construct this theory and we're going to have all this stuff. I cannot tell you how much I've been reading about the Bolsheviks. I can't stop reading about the Bolsheviks. I am fascinated by them. I am absolutely fascinated by the Bolsheviks. I'm fascinated by Stalin, how he took over the Bolsheviks. I'm intrigued as if there's no tomorrow with the idea of what a government created by intellectuals looked like. And you know what it looked like? It looked like murder. That's what it looked like. It looked like murder because it was murder. A government of intellectuals was murder. And you hear a lot of apologists for communism and socialism say, well, no. Stalin came in and ruined socialism. Lenin had the right idea. Stalin came in and ruined socialism. Lenin murdered a lot of people. Lenin established the Cheka. Lenin knew that innocent people were being shot up against a wall. Lenin was the guy who used dirty tricks against all his own people. Lenin was the entire idea. And so what these people are saying when they say, well, Stalin ruined socialism, what they're saying, my response to that would be, so let me see if I get this straight. What you're saying is a system where individuals are treated as utterly worthless, where the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, where it's all about class warfare and predicated on hatred of other people for their success. And the entire idea of centralization, concentration of power in the group of 4 or 5 people in the Politburo. So what you're saying is, you've created a society where the individual is worthless, where the endless goal of utopia just over the horizon justifies any amount of murder, and we want to put unlimited power in the hands of 5 or 6 pointy-headed intellectuals who can't agree on anything. And you're saying that somehow this system fell to the most ruthless of these people, like this is an accident. Happened in the Soviet Union. It happened in Nazi Germany with National Socialism. It happened in China with Mao. It happened in Vietnam with Ho Chi Minh. It happened in Venezuela with Chavez. It happened with Pol Pot in Cambodia. If you design a system that is based upon a few people controlling everybody else, where there's no rights to the individual and they have utter power in pursuit of a goal that is unachievable and is entirely predicated on the murdering of people among them who are responsible for all their troubles, then you're going to end up with murder. It's not an accident. It's the inevitable outcome. There's no other possible outcome for this. If you put power in that kind of concentrations in the hands of a few people, the most ruthless guy, not the kindest guy, and not the smartest guy, the most ready to commit cold-blooded murder is the one who's going to come out on top. It happens every single time you apply this theory. Maybe after a few hundred years, and I don't know how much is enough for you. 200 million dead people, is that enough? That's pretty much everybody, every adult in America. That's 5 times the population of Britain or France. Kill everybody in France 4 times. Every single one of them shooting them back of the head, do it 4 times? That's not enough dead people for you to get the point yet? Apparently not. So I think what you would find on conservative island is you would find people saying, what's good for me and how do I help other people so that they can help me? I have seen conservatives do things and commit acts of generosity for utter strangers, and I never see liberals do that. I see conservatives do it all the time, and I see conservatives treat menials. I don't particularly like that term, but it's a useful adjective. I have seen conservatives far kinder to waiters and janitors and drivers than liberals are, because liberals feel that they have an obligation to the great unwashed working class out of a sense of nobility, but it's not. It's just mostly guilt, and it's also superiority. And we've been through all this before. So the short form, Zechariah, is you're gonna get people who want to cooperate versus people who want to get told what to do, and the people that told what to do aren't going to like being told what to do, and they're going to resent it, and they're going to slack off, and they're going to gold brick, and they're going to do all the other stuff. The final thing I'll say about back to the Bolsheviks is, you think that the Bolsheviks claim that their revolution was in the name of the working man. It was the dictatorship of the proletariat. Well, the proletariat has a specific term in Marxist theory. A proletariat was not a peasant, as a matter of fact. This is the part I didn't know until very recently. The peasants outnumbered the proletariat in revolutionary Russia around 1917, outnumbered of 5-1. In other words, there were probably 4 or 5 working farmers as peasants out in the countryside for every industrial worker. And this revolution was in the name of the industrial workers, the working class, the proletariat, Marxist term, an industrial revolution term. And what the Bolsheviks did as soon as they were in power is they started to turn against the peasants. They didn't really get into full swing until Stalin came into power. But by 1933, the Soviets, the Bolsheviks, because a Soviet was something that lasted for about a year, a workers' union, and the Bolsheviks used Soviet as kind of a fig leaf to grab power. Once they took power, there were no such thing as actual Soviets in the Soviet Union. There were just Bolsheviks and party. But by 1933, certainly by then, and in the years leading up to it, Stalin and the Bolsheviks decided to break the peasants, break them, destroy them. The peasants lived on small pieces of private property. They'd been given private property with the Tsar, and the peasants didn't want to give up their little farms. Those farms had existed in Russia for 1,000 years. And it was the Bolsheviks, not the Tsar. It was the Bolsheviks that said, you've all got to go out to collective farms. And I think when they first offered collectivization as an option to the peasantry, to the Russian peasantry, the poorest of the poor people, something like 4% of the total farmers joined collectives. That wasn't enough. So they made it mandatory. And when the peasants realized that the people from the cities with guns, that's what happened, people from the cities with guns, intellectuals with barbaric soldiers in the NKVD and the Cheka, came out to the countryside and said, you will give us all of your grain, all of it, or we'll take it. And the peasants fought back. And they shot at each other, and then the peasants decided they'd rather burn their grain and shoot their horses than give them to the Soviets, to the Bolsheviks. They killed 2/3 of the total horses in the country, just slaughtered them where they stood. Millions of horses killed by the peasants so that they didn't fall into the hands of the Bolsheviks. And they burned down their own barns and burned down their own farms. Now, the peasants were told that the enemy of the people's always got to be a class enemy, were the kulaks. The kulaks were the successful farmers. And so everything, I'm getting a lot of people saying, checking the mic. Is the mic working? Looking good. Am I getting pops? Some people are complaining about the audio, but we're not really monitoring it. We'll look into that next week. Hopefully most of you can hear me okay. Vibration static. I might be just a little close. Sometimes I get, I start to get religion, and I start to get a little fired up, so maybe I just need to take a step back. Anyway, they blamed the kulaks. The kulaks were peasants. They were peasants. They were not rich. They weren't middle class. They were peasants. But maybe they were peasants who had a horse, and maybe they had enough money so they could hire 1 or 2 other peasants to work with them together and share the profits and the wealth. So the Soviets, I keep saying Soviets, the Bolsheviks came back out to the countryside and said, your problem is the rich peasants, the kulaks. We are? Can you hear me at all? Maybe it's better if I'm not so close to the microphone. Hopefully that's better. We'll do another check on it, so sorry about that. Static good. I don't know. We had a lot of static problems in a test earlier, and I don't know if it's a static buildup thing. Hopefully the sound is okay. Boy, everybody's saying static now. Feedback, static. I'm going to stop for a second. I can hear something. I don't know what to do about it, though. Fuzzy not popping. It just suddenly came on, I guess, huh? Vibrating. Oh, this is swell. And we gotta. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, folks. I'm going to have to continue because I can't really monitor it now. But I'll tell you what I will do. I am going to. I'll listen to the playback and we'll do some more audio tests. So hopefully we'll get through this. Sorry about that. I can't hear it. I can't hear the feedback. But we'll look for it and we'll do some more tests. So at least you can at least hear from me now. So that's really annoying because we did have some problems earlier. We thought they got those fixed. Anyway, just to wrap up the story, because we're getting kind of close to being done tonight. So they came after the kulaks, and the kulaks were the richer peasants. And they killed them. They just killed them. They killed 10 million of them, and they exported the rest to Siberia. What? It's too loud? Doesn't seem not getting any feedback indications on the mic. It's got a neat little feedback thing. But anyway, I'll work on it. Is it grounded? I don't think it is. It might just be an electric static issue. That's annoying because it loses my train of thought. But I'll just wrap up with the peasants here, and we'll go a little on, and then I'll listen to the show, and we'll figure out what it is. We'll get it nailed. So anyway, you got these peasants, the kulaks. They're killed, and all of the poor peasants say, "Kill the kulaks." They don't say, "Kill the Bolsheviks." Those guys have always been murdered. So they say kill the kulaks. And as their neighbors, these people have been their neighbors for 1,000 years, are being dragged off to the cattle cars and being taken away. I don't know if that's, maybe it just needed a little static discharge. Must be my magnetic personality. As they were taken away, everybody just spat on them, their neighbors. They're taken away. This is the point. And I've had this thought very clearly lately, especially with Ferguson and everything else that's happening with these socialists. This is a really, 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 really important point. Why were kulaks richer than other peasants? Why did they have slightly more? Why did they have an ox or two and more land than the other ones? Well, they had slightly more than other people because they were better farmers. They were better farmers. They worked really, when you get right down to it, you're not talking about, running GPS coordinates through all this other stuff. You're really talking about sticking a hole in the ground, and putting seeds in it. And so what we found was that they had killed the ones who knew what they were doing. And once they killed the ones that knew what they were doing, the ones that were left were either the incapable, incompetent, or the lazy. And I just, I don't know what to say about that. That's what socialism is. It's based on envy, and it's envy of the people who were good at things. And the reason they were good at things was mostly because they worked harder. And this is what I've come to realize about the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is, in fact, the government of the lazy and the stupid against the successful and the hardworking. Honestly, it's really what it comes down to. It's what socialism is. It's certainly what communism is. It's the resentment of the successful, and it's their murder. And so, let's just murder all the successful people, and then we'll be fine. Then there won't be any more wealth income distribution. Correct. Everybody will starve together, and that's what happened. Everybody starved because the ones that were left were lazy and stupid, and they didn't know how to farm, and they didn't want to farm. They didn't want to work. And so that's what happened. That's what the Soviet Union did. And when I look at what's happening in America today, that's what I see. I see the lazy and the stupid conspiring to bring down the successful and threatening them with violence if they don't pay them their money. And that's what Occupy Wall Street is. It's gangs of thugs who don't have jobs and don't ever expect to have jobs using violence in order to get what they want, which is wealth, which they didn't earn and don't know how to earn and can't earn and certainly don't have the work ethic to earn. So, that's really, I think about it. I don't know what else to say about it. Zechariah, when you get the two different teams of people on the same island, you're going to have those who are ready to work and those who aren't. And the ones who are ready to work are going to expect more reward because they're producing more. If I hand in 100 barrels of bushels of grain, because I get up every morning at 4:30 and I stay out till 9 o'clock at night, and I hand in 100 bushels of grain to our communal leadership, and you turn in 2 bushels, and then all of a sudden we start dividing up 102 bushels equally, that's not fair. And if it turns out that you're going to confiscate the extra 98 bushels that I did, you're just going to take them away, then I just won't do them. I won't do them. I'll do 2 bushels like you did, and I'll sleep the rest of the day. And that's exactly what happens, and that's why you end up with this rampant poverty, because there's no incentive, and it's not fair, and it's unjust, and it's evil. And that's what we have to call these people: unjust, evil, unfair, thieves. Thieves. They don't have moral superiority. There are many people who are poor who work very hard, and I've been one of them for a long time. But you don't have any moral superiority because you're poor. It doesn't grant you moral superiority automatically. There are bad poor people and there are good rich people, and I don't see that there's any particular distinction between them based on their wealth. The distinction is based on their actions. And there you go. So I think the conservative world, or the conservative island, would consist of people saying, what do I have to do? What do I need? How can I make an arrangement with what I need for the stuff I can't get from people who can do the things I can't do, and what can I do for them in return? And I think the liberal island would be basically, people debating and debating and debating and debating, and then electing a few people in a council, and then the rest of us sit out and catch some rays and hope that the fish wash up ashore dead. Anyway, that's that. It's